Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Robin, and I am so glad you've decided to spend some time with me today. We are going to explore something truly fascinating, something that sits right at the intersection of ancient Amazonian wisdom and cutting-edge neuroscience. I'm here representing Back to Your Roots Herbs, and today we aren't just talking about general wellness, we are focusing on the control center of your entire existence, the human brain. Specifically, we are going to look at a botanical powerhouse known as Pao Pereira, and why it might just be the most important plant for cerebral health that you've arguably never heard of. Now, before we get into the heavy science, and trust me, the science is incredible, I want you to picture something. Imagine a fortress, a castle with walls so high and gates so tight that almost nothing can get in. This fortress is designed to keep enemies out. It stops toxins, viruses, and bacteria from entering the throne room. This fortress is your brain, and the wall? That is called the blood-brain barrier. For years, this barrier has been the biggest headache for modern medicine. It is a brilliant evolutionary defense mechanism. It protects your neurons, the cells that make you you, from things floating in your blood that shouldn't be there. But there is a catch. This wall is so good at its job that it blocks out the good guys too. Did you know that approximately 98% of small molecule drugs cannot cross that barrier? 98%. That means when we try to treat things like brain tumors or Alzheimer's or severe memory loss, most of the therapeutic agents we develop just bounce off the wall. They never reach the target. This is where Pao Pereira changes the game. Originating from the Amazon rainforest, specifically from the bark of the Gysospermum villosii tree, this plant has been used by indigenous populations for generations. They used it for malaria, for digestion, as a general tonic. But what they didn't know, what modern science is finally catching up to, is that the alkaloids in this bark possess a rare superpower. They are lipophilic. That is a fancy scientific word that simply means they love fat. Why does that matter? Because your blood-brain barrier is essentially a lipid bilayer. It's made of fat. While water-soluble drugs get stopped at the gate, Pao Pereira's compounds dissolve right into that lipid layer and slip through the wall. They have an all-access pass to the brain. And that is where the story really begins. Because once Pao Pereira is inside the fortress, it acts with a kind of intelligence that is almost hard to believe. Let's talk about one of the scariest things that can happen in the brain: cancer, specifically aggressive tumors like glioblastoma. If you or a loved one has ever looked into this, you know the prognosis is often heartbreaking. These tumors are resistant to chemotherapy, largely because of that barrier we just talked about, and because the cancer cells themselves are incredibly adaptable. But research, pioneered by brilliant minds like Dr. Mirko Beljanski, has shown that Pao Pereira works on a mechanism called the destabilized DNA hypothesis. Let me explain this so it makes sense. Think of the DNA in your healthy brain cells like a tightly zipped up winter coat. It's supercoiled, compact, and protected. It's stable. Now think of a cancer cell. Cancer is chaos. It's replicating too fast, dividing out of control. Because of this speed, its DNA is relaxed. The zipper is busted open. The strands are pulled apart. When Pao Pereira enters the brain, its alkaloids, specifically one called Flavopereirine, look for these open zippers. When they find a cancer cell with that destabilized open DNA, they slide right in between the strands. This is called intercalation. It's like putting a wedge in a door so it can't close. Once that wedge is in, the cancer cell can't replicate. It can't read its own instructions. And when a cell can't function, it triggers a program called apoptosis. It essentially creates a self-destruct sequence. The tumor cell dies. But here's the most beautiful part of this process. And this is what makes Pao Pereira so special compared to traditional chemotherapy. Remember the healthy cells? The ones with the tightly zipped coats? The Pao alkaloids try to slide in, but they can't. The DNA is too tight. There is no room. So the alkaloids just bounce off. They don't hurt the healthy cell. They leave your normal neurons alone. This is selective toxicity. It attacks the enemy but spares the innocent. There was a case study that really touched me when I was looking through the data. It involved a 14-year-old child. This child had a tumor in the brainstem. Now, the brainstem controls your breathing, your heart rate. It is the most critical real estate in your body. You can't just go in there and operate easily. It's too dangerous. The doctors planned radiation, but before they started, the child began taking Pao Pereira extracts. What happened next is the kind of thing that makes you pause. The tumor didn't just shrink, it disappeared completely. The radiation was canceled because it was no longer necessary. We are talking about a botanical extract crossing the blood-brain barrier and resolving a mass in a vital region of the brain. There was another story of a 16-year-old boy with medulloblastoma, a common and aggressive childhood brain tumor. Usually, the treatment for this leaves kids with severe cognitive deficits. They struggle in school. They struggle with memory. This young man took Pao Pereira alongside his standard treatment. Not only did he go into remission, but his parents reported that he had virtually none of the usual side effects. He stayed in school, he kept his grades up, he lived a normal life while fighting a deadly disease. That is the power of protecting the healthy tissue while attacking the sick tissue. It's about quality of life, not just survival. But let's shift gears for a moment. I know not everyone listening is dealing with something as heavy as a brain tumor. Many of us are thinking about something more universal. We are thinking about aging. We are thinking about memory. Have you ever walked into a room and forgotten why you're there? Or struggled to find a word that's right on the tip of your tongue? As we age, our brains change. Specifically, we start to lose a chemical messenger called acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is the gold standard for memory and learning. It's the spark that lets one neuron talk to another. In conditions like Alzheimer's or even just general age-related cognitive decline, the levels of this messenger drop significantly. Why do they drop? Because of enzymes. Think of these enzymes as little Pac-Men running around your brain, eating up the acetylcholine before it can do its job. These enzymes are called acetylcholinesterase and butyrylcholinesterase. Most prescription drugs for memory loss only stop the first one, acetylcholinesterase. They act like a goalie blocking one side of the net. But as we get older, and especially in Alzheimer's, the other enzyme, butyrylcholinesterase, starts working overtime to eat up your memory molecules. Pao Pereira is unique because it is a dual inhibitor. The alkaloids in this plant, specifically gysospermine, block both enzymes. It's like having two goalies. It stops the breakdown of acetylcholine on both fronts. This means more of that vital messenger stays in your brain. The result? Better communication between neurons, improved memory, better focus. In animal studies, researchers induced amnesia in mice. They gave them a drug that wiped out their short-term memory. Then they gave them Pao Pereira. The mice treated with the extract completely recovered their memory. They could navigate mazes and remember safe areas just as well as the mice that never had amnesia in the first place. And they did it without the side effects, like tremors or nausea, that usually come with synthetic drugs. But the protection goes even further than just boosting memory chemicals. We have to talk about inflammation. You've heard of inflammation in your joints, right? Well, your brain can get inflamed too. We call it neuroinflammation. In the brain, you have these little immune cells called microglia. When they are healthy, they are the janitors. They clean up waste. But when they get chronic inflammation from aging, stress, or toxins, they get angry. They start spraying out toxic chemicals that kill your neurons. This is considered the third pillar of Alzheimer's disease. Pao Pereira contains an alkaloid called gysoschizoline. This compound acts like a peacekeeper. It tells those angry microglial cells to calm down. It significantly reduces the release of those toxic chemicals. So think about this holistic approach. On one hand, you have Pao Pereira boosting your memory chemicals by stopping the enzymes that eat them. On the other hand, it is calming down the inflammation that kills your brain cells. And on top of that, if there are any rogue cells with damaged DNA, like we see in cancer, it targets them for removal. It is a multi-layered defense strategy. And I want to touch on one more thing that often gets overlooked when we talk about brain health: pain. Chronic pain is a brain issue as much as it is a body issue. The way we perceive pain happens in the central nervous system. Traditional Pao Pereira use included pain management, and modern science backs this up. It has a central analgesic effect. That means it doesn't just work like aspirin at the site of the injury, it actually modulates the pain signals in the brain and spinal cord. In studies, it was shown to be comparable to strong anti-inflammatories, but again, without the stomach-damaging side effects. It even has a history of being used as a mood lifter and a libido enhancer. While the science there is still looking at the exact pathways, it makes sense. If you are boosting acetylcholine and modulating serotonin receptors, which we see hints of in the data, you are going to feel more alert, more alive, and more connected to your body. So why aren't we seeing this on every pharmacy shelf? Well, as with many natural compounds, large-scale human clinical trials are expensive and rare for things that can't be easily patented. But the preclinical evidence, the animal models, And those powerful human case studies paint a picture that is hard to ignore. The safety profile is remarkable. In the studies, the difference between the dose you need to get the benefit and the dose that would be toxic is huge. It's a wide safety margin. This is a plant that wants to work with your body, not overpower it. As we wrap up this discussion, I want you to think about that fortress again, your brain. It works hard for you every single second of every single day. It holds your memories, your personality, your ability to love and to dream. It deserves the best protection we can give it. Whether you are looking to support a serious fight against a condition like glioblastoma, or you are simply looking to stay sharp, focused, and mentally agile as the years go by, Pao Pereira offers a solution that is both gentle and incredibly potent. It respects the healthy architecture of your biology while dismantling the chaotic elements that threaten it. It really is the brain's guardian. I hope this conversation has sparked some curiosity in you. I hope it makes you look at the Amazon rainforest and the medicine it holds with a little more reverence. If you found this information valuable and you want to look deeper into the research we discussed today, or if you are interested in sourcing high-quality Pao Pereira for yourself, I encourage you to reach out to us. To learn more, please visit us at backtoyourrootsherbs.com. The direct link for information on Pao Pereira for the brain is in the description below. Thank you so much for listening, for taking charge of your health, and for letting me be a part of your journey today. Until next time, take care of that fortress.